We're on the Gemara towards the bottom of Mem Gimel Amud Beis, where it says, about 5-10 lines from the bottom, Nechemye berei Rav Chaniloi. First word on the line is Tziloi. So the Gemara here brings a incident that happened to one of the Amiroim. Nechemye berei Rav Chaniloi. Meshachte Shmaita. He got very immersed in his learning, and he was thinking to himself. And he was walking, and eventually, he walked out of the tchum, being so immersed in his thoughts, he walked out of the tchum on Shabbos. So what happens when you walk out of the tchum on Shabbos? You're not allowed to move out of your dal damas. Nechemye, your student, is in pain, can't move around. So how can we help him? Is there any eitzah for him to be able to come back into the tchum, to be able to walk around? So Rav Nachman said, Aseiloi mechitza shel b'nei yadam. Why don't you form a human mechitza, a human partition? People will stand and create a wall. V'yikanis, and through this he'll be able to enter back into the tchum Shabbos. He'll walk through in between the mechitza, human mechitza, and he'll enter back in. So basically, the point is that you're allowed, we already learned a few times before, you're allowed to create a mechitza on Shabbos itself. A mechitza created on Shabbos is a mechitza. And another thing we see over here is that a human mechitza is also a good mechitza, right? And once you're in a mechitza, which is a Reshus HaYachid, so we learned before the opinion of Rabbi Gamliel, in a Reshus HaYachid, you're allowed to walk more than 4 amas. Okay? As long as you're not in a Reshus HaYachid, so then you could only walk 4 amas. But here that you're in a Reshus HaYachid, you can walk more than 4 amas, and then you could enter back into the Tchum Shabbos. Once you enter back into the Tchum Shabbos with Reshus, in a way that it was allowed, so now he'll be able to go back and walk as much as he wants in his Tchum. Yosef Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak achayre de Rava. Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak was sitting behind Rava. Yosef Rava kamei de Rav Nachman. And Rava was sitting in front of Rav Nachman when Rav Nachman gave this eitzah. Amalei Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak le Rava. So Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak asks Rava, "Mai kam yibayalei le Rav Chisda?" What was Rav Chisda's question? Is there any eitzah that we can do for him? Why was he having a question about this? In other words, wasn't Rav Chisda aware of this concept that you can create a human mechitza? So he had a doubt. He was asking Rav Nachman, could we help him? What was the basis of his question? Is the case that they have enough people. There's enough people to create this human mechitza. But his question was, Hilchase kerab Gamliel, do we paskin like Rabbi Gamliel, or do we not paskin like Rabbi Gamliel? What's the chiddush of Rabbi Gamliel? Rabbi Gamliel, we learned before, said that if you were brought into a place on Shabbos by Goyim, you were not within those mechitzas when Shabbos began. But because now you're in these mechitzas of Reshus HaYachid, you're allowed to walk around as much as you want, more than the Aldamas. That was the chiddush of Rabbi Gamliel in the beginning of the Masechta. Perek, that is. So his suffix was, do we paskin like the shit of Rabbi Gamliel? So this human partition will help. Or maybe we don't paskin like Rabbi Gamliel. Since you're not in this mechitzah when Shabbos began, you can't walk around more than 4 amas. That was his question. Or maybe Rav Chisda had another suffix. There weren't enough people to create this human partition for him to be able to enter all the way into the Tchum. What was this question? Halacha k'Rabbi Eliezer or ein halacha k'Rabbi Eliezer? Do we paskin like Rabbi Eliezer or not? What is it that Rabbi Eliezer says? So there's a Mishnah later that says, I'm going to learn it soon in this Perek, Rabbi Eliezer says that as long as a person is within 2 amas outside his tchum, he's able to go back inside. If you leave your tchum, but you're within 2 amas, you're able to enter. So now the question is, they were able to create a human partition close enough for Nechemye and Ben Berei Rav Chaniloi to come within 2 amas of the tchum, but not quite all the way into the tchum. So is that going to be good enough for him to be able to enter or not? That was the shayla. Do we paskin like Rabbi Eliezer that once we create this human partition close enough so we'll be able to enter? Or not? Or ein halacha Rabbi Eliezer? Maybe we don't paskin like Rabbi Eliezer. That was the question. So the Gemara says, Pshita, it's clear, if you look at the story here and what happened, it's clear, but there weren't enough people. There weren't enough people to create this human partition all the way into the Tchum. Because if they had enough people for him to be able to go through this human partition straight into the inside the Tchum, what would be his question? We already learned before. Rav said, "Halacha Rabbi Gamliel." We paskin like Rabbi Gamliel. Bedir, v'sar, usfina. If you were on Shabbos taken out of your tchum and you were placed by goyim into a dir and sar, which is a place surrounded with a wall, or into a boat, which is also a place that has a mechitza and it's a reshus yachid. So we see clearly that we paskin like Rabbi Gamliel. Rav said this, that's no question. Elavadai, so it must be beduloy molo gavra askinan. There weren't enough people to create this human partition. And the question was, will it be enough to use this human partition to come close enough into the Tchum, within 2 amas of the Tchum, and then he can go in, like Rabbi Eliezer's opinion. We could also be medayik this. We can see this in the precise wording that Rav Nachman used, the Ka'amalei Yikonis. He says, create the human partition, and then he adds the word Yikonis. He'll be able to enter. Ma Yikonis, what's Pshat will be able to enter? If you have a human partition that goes all the way into the Tchum, you're in already. You go through the human partition, you are inside. What's the additional thing of, and then you could enter? So Ma Yikonis, what does that mean? Lav B'loi Mechitza. What it means is, you're going to get close enough to the Tchum within 2 amas, but then Yikonis, once you're that close, you're able to enter. So this is the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer that Rav Nachman was giving him the Eitzah, based on that opinion.
So it's using both.
Yeah, side the human partition, and the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer, that you get close enough, you're able to enter. Sagt the Gemara, Eisve Rav Nachman by Yitzchak l'Rave. Rav Nachman by Yitzchak asked Rave about this Eitzah here, that you can use a human partition. And the Gemara is going to get into a discussion about this, and we'll see soon. The Hemshech of the Gemara, bottom line is going to be that it's b'chlal not pasha to use a human partition. But Payal Mamish, if you're thinking about doing such an Eitzah today, to use a human partition, it's b'chlal not pasha. So let's see. So Rav Nachman Yitzchak asked the question, Nafal doifna. So we're learning now about sukkah. Ashkacha pratis. If you're starting to build your sukkah already, so we have here the halacha of sukkah. Nafal doifna, the sukkah, wall of your sukkah fell down. So you're looking for something to put up a partition for the wall. Lo yamid ba adam or behema. You can't put up over there not a person, not a behema, v'kelim, or other kelim over there in that place. And also if you had a bed in your sukkah, so don't stand up your bed, lifres aleh satin, and to spread out a sheet in your bed to create a wall there. Why? You're not allowed to make even a temporary oil, to create a new temporary oil on Shabbos, on Yontif that is, and needless to say, on Shabbos. Okay, so here we have one braisa that says that you can't put an Adam and Behema. So to use the Adam and a Behema to create a partition on Yontif or on Shabbos, you can't use it for a wall of a sukkah. So why shouldn't we say the same thing over here? The Eitz of Rav Nachman was to create a mechitza, a human mechitza. We see that you can't do that when you get to the sukkah, that the wall fell down. Amalei, so Rav Nachman, so Rav said, At Amrit Limaha, you're asking me a question from this braisa, where it says that you can't create a human partition, or the truth is even kalim, or any temporary mechitza on Shabbos or Yom Tov. I'll bring you a different brayse where it says that you could. What does it say? If you're missing a wall for your sukkah, your friend, you can put your friend to stand there as a wall, so that you can eat and drink and sleep in the sukkah. You could also stand up a bed and hang a sheet over it in order that the sun should not go on a dead body. You want it to be in the shade. And also food shouldn't get spoiled. So you see over here that you could create a temporary mechitza on Shabbos, and also one of the examples that's used is that you're using a person to create this temporary mechitza on Shabbos and Yontif in a sukkah. It's interesting that Rashi points out over here, and we'll see soon this will be also relevant for the Hemshech of the Gemara, when it talks about using chaveira, using a person for a mechitza, in this second braisa, what does it say? You're telling the person to stand there in order that you should be able to eat, drink, and sleep. So Rashi says, Iker mitzvasa shel sukkah begimel dvarim alalu. The main mitzvah of sukkah is these 3 things: eating, and drinking, and sleeping in the sukkah. This is something which the Rebbe speaks about in the famous Sikha about sleeping in the sukkah. There, the Rebbe actually brings from the Rogatchover. The Rogatchover says the Svara that the Ikka mitzvah of sleeping of the sukkah is actually the dira, which is what's the main dira of a person? Eating and drinking. When do we make a bracha leishav basukkah? Only on eating and drinking. If you stand metayel in the sukkah, or even if you go to sleep in the sukkah, for those that sleep in the sukkah, you don't make a bracha leishav basukkah on the sleeping in the sukkah, because it's not. So the Rogatchover says the reason is because regarding sleeping, you're not allowed to sleep out of the sukkah. But it's not the ikar dira of a person, so therefore it's not the ikar mitzvah of the sukkah itself. But the Rebbe in the Sikha brings rayas from the Alter Rebbe and from other places that no, that shina, sleeping in the sukkah, is just as much part of the dira of living in the sukkah like eating and drinking. Same amount. What's the Indian of not sleeping in the sukkah? So the Rebbe gives a different answer. There's what it says in the Ramah about the fact that there's a tsar, and then the Rebbe says that there's a tsar from the makif and the bina, whatever it is, mitztayer patum in a sukkah. That's the basis of the way the Rebbe explains why we don't sleep in the sukkah. But as far as why don't we make a bracha on shina b'sukkah, so this is based on the shit of Rabbeinu Tam. Rabbeinu Tam says that Chachamim were misakin that you should make the bracha on the eating and the drinking, and that will go on everything else. That will pater all the other things that a person does. Everything else is also part of the dira b'sukkah, but b'poil they put the bracha on the eating and the drinking, and that paters everything else. But here you see this in Rashi. Rashi says that the dira, the ikar mitzvasa is gimel dvarim alalu, eating, drinking, and sleeping.
No one goes to sleep.
B'shas is sleeping, but megate shlafen, when megate shlafen. Okay, so the etzem shlaf, the sleep is not. Okay, so good. The Rogatchover says that it's not. It's only only not allowed to sleep outside of this. Okay, but the
Svarim is common sense that the ikar dira is sleeping. Eating you can eat anywhere.
Well, so we're learning over here. One of the things we're learning here, when you get Erev Tchumen, you also see that the ikar dira of a person is dafka the food, because where does a person establish a shvisa for Erev Tchumen? He doesn't have to go to sleep there. Yeah, you put food there. So you see that again, that the food establishes where a person. If you know you have a place where you can eat. So then that's more the das of a person, that is ikar dira. If you have a place where you can sleep, but there's no food available, so then where would you rather go? In a place where you have food. So that, again, you see the ikar dira of a person is the food. But when you get to sukkah, Rashi says all three. Interesting, this is interesting Rashi here. Okay, so now the Gemara basically pointed out that we have here a contradiction. In one brayso it says that you can't make a temporary wall to make up for the wall of your sukkah that fell. And in another brayso it says you could. So the Gemara says, no, so kashina dodi. We have a contradiction of these two braysos. So the Gemara, loy kashya. No, it's not a question. Ha Rabbi Eliezer, ha Rabbanan. This could be connected to a machlekes that we learned already in Masechta Shabbos a few times. A machlekes between Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbanan regarding creating an oil arai on Shabbos. The Tanan we learned there in the Mishnah, pekak kachaloin. Shutters of a window. Rabbi Eliezer says, are you allowed to put up these shutters on the window on Shabbos or Yontif? So Rabbi Eliezer says, only bizman shekosher v'toli. If it was connected to the wall already and it's suspended off the ground, then paiking by. Then you're allowed to shutter the window with it. Vim lav ain't paiking by. Otherwise you can't. If it's connected, so then it's already part of it. You're not doing anything new. It's there already. You're just closing it. Chachamim say no, benkach or benkach paikikim by. Whether it's connected to the wall, whether it's not, you're allowed to shutter the windows with it. So what do you see over here? That there's a machlokes benegeh to shuttering the windows, which is an oil arai. You're making an arai, you can shutter it and you take it off. So you see there's a machlokes about making an addition to the wall, an oil arai on Shabbos and Yontif, if you're allowed or not. So we can apply the same machlokes over here benegeh to the sukkah, and we're allowed to tell a person to stand there, or put up a bed, or put some kalim there to create this oil arai on Shabbos and Yontif for the wall that I need for the sukkah.
So Shabbos, who is this kavua?
Huh?
Who is this kavua? Not that.
Where by the
Shabbos.
On Shabbos it's arai? Where? For the windows you're talking about? No, it's not called arai because it's huh?
Kavua, it's not the arai. Sukkah is kavua. Is arai. How is this?
No, but even by the house, the shutters that you put on a window is also considered to be arai because it's not like a roof or a wall. It's just a shutter that you put on and off. But the Gemara now asks, it's not only is it arai, v'ha'itmer Allah. We learned this in Shabbos. The Gemara says, Omar Rabba Baba Chana, Omar Rabbi Yechanan. Hakoil moedim she'ein oisen oil arai b'tchila b'yomtiv vein tzarech loima b'Shabbos. You're not allowed to make an oil arai, not on yomtiv, and then for sure not on Shabbos. So what's the machlekes Rabbi Eliezer and the Chachamim? Leinechlaku ela lahoisef. The whole argument was only to add. Once you have already a wall there, you have the window there, you just want to add the shutter to be meisif on this oil, that's the machlekes. Rabbi Eliezer says you can't add. The that you are allowed to add. So we see over here that the whole machlekes has only been negated to adding. So that's not shaykh to what we're talking about over here, where you want to make a whole wall. Your whole wall fell. It's not just a shutter of a window. So how could you connect it to that machlekes? So the Gemara, Ella, there's another Tana we could connect this to maybe. Ella lekashi hakarab Meir hakarab Yehuda. There's a machlekes between Rab Meir and Rab Yehuda. The Tanya, we learned in Abraise, Asa lebeheme doifen lesukkah. Could you b'chlal use a beheme, or for that matter also a human being, as a wall for a sukkah? So Rab Meir says, if you made an animal as a wall to a sukkah, Rab Meir paisel. Rab Meir says you can't use an animal for a wall of a sukkah, because the animal could get up and walk away. Only if you tie down the animal. So then it's going to be a good wall. But otherwise you can't use an animal for the wall of the sukkah. Rabbi Yehuda machshe. And Rabbi Yehuda says you are allowed. Rab Meir, the kapasul hasam. So Rab Meir that says that you can't use an animal for the sukkah. Al malav mechitzi. So if you put a human being there, you put the animal there, you haven't accomplished anything. It's b'chlal, not a mechitza. So therefore, according to Rab Meir, the Braisa says you would be allowed to have the person or the animal be there. You could put it over there because you didn't create a mechitza. You didn't now create your sukkah for the mitzvah. Didn't do anything. So hachashari, therefore it's allowed. The lav midikav, you didn't accomplish anything when you did this on Shabbos or Yontif. But Rabbi Yehuda, the kamachsher Hasam, Rabbi Yehuda that says that if you use a behemah or a person for the wall of your sukkah, it's good. You're making now kosher sukkah. You accomplish something for the mitzvah. Alma mechitzi, so it is a mechitza. So hachasa. So therefore over here to do this on Shabbos and Yontiv, it's not allowed because you accomplished something. You created the oil. You did it for the mitzvah of sukkah. This is the answer the Gemara gives here in the state of the Braises. This answer is the Gemara is going to ask now many questions on this answer. It doesn't make any sense. Rashi right away points out, and this is a question that the Gemara doesn't even ask. The Braisa clearly said, in the Braisa that it said that it's allowed, that the reason it's allowed is in order that you should be able to eat, drink, and sleep in the sukkah. What's the Gemara saying now? You know why it's allowed? Because it's a pasal and mechitza. It didn't accomplish anything. That's why it's allowed. But it said in the Braisa that you're allowed to do it in order that it should be a kosher sukkah, that you can eat and drink over there. So how could we say that it's allowed because it's pasal? But the Gemara asks other questions. Sagt the Gemara, Tizbera, is this a svara? Could you say that this machlokes, the two braises that we brought here, is connected to the machlokes of Rab Meir and Rab Yehuda? Rab Meir beheme Adam. Before, so we brought away the machlokes of Rab Meir and Rab Yehuda is only been negayah to a beheme and an Adam, a human being, whether that's a good mechitza or not. Behema, that is. Let me read that again. But only behema. Adam v'kelim mishametle. Did he ever speak about Adam and Kelim? So actually, it only says behema, not Adam, and not Kelim either. So the whole machlokes doesn't apply to what we're talking about here in these braises. The stira of the braises was also speaking about a human being and even putting Kelim there. So it's not speaking only about behema. So how could you connect it to that machlokes? So another question is Rab Meir ali b'deman. Rab Meir that says, you're telling me now that because Rab Meir says that it's possible for the mitzvah of sukkah, so therefore Rab Meir says you could put up this wall there. Even though your mom is creating a wall, but because it didn't do anything for the mitzvah of sukkah, it's okay. According to who would Rab Meir go? Where do you go according to the opinion of Rab Eliezer that we quoted before? Lahaisif nami yasar. Rab Eliezer says you're not even allowed to add shutters to the window. Even that's not allowed. When you're adding the shutters for the window, you're not accomplishing anything for the mitzvah, you're not, right? And still, Rabbi Eliezer says you're not allowed to add shutters to the window. So how would you be allowed to put up a behemah as a mechitza, even if it didn't accomplish anything for the mitzvah, but you're adding a wall? Fact is, you're putting the behemah there to create that partition. El aliba de Rabbanon. So Rab Meir would go according to the Rabbanon. Amri Rabbanon lahaisif. Rabbanan only allowed to add the pekak to the chalayt, to add the shutters to the window. L'chatchila miyamer. Do the Rabbanan allowed to create a wall even l'chatchila? So this whole point that the Gemara tried to say here, that because the wall you put up, it wasn't machshir the sukkah, so therefore the wall is not considered to be a wall, the Gemara is saying this whole concept is not true. We see the machlekes of Rabbi Eliezer and the Rabbanon regarding creating a pakak for a chalayin, the shutters for the window. Over there, the chalay, it's not creating anything for a mitzvah. And still, we see that only to add to an existing wall, is there a machlekes if it's allowed or not. But to put a behemah there, adam there, kalim there, to create a wall when you're not adding, for sure it's not allowed, according to everybody. So therefore the Gemara now says another pshat. Ella, rather what we have to say is, the two brises about the sukkah, whether you're allowed to put up a wall for the sukkah on Shabbos in any of these ways, hava rabbanon. We're only going according to the rabbanon, and what we're talking about over here is something else. V'kelim akelim lekashya. The contradiction whether you can put their kelim to add to your sukkah when the wall fell down. It's not a question. It depends which wall fell down. Ha b'doifen shlishis, ha b'doifen reviyis. What's the halacha by sukkah? How many walls do you need for a sukkah? 3 walls, not 4 walls. You only need 3 walls. Our minhag is b'payil that we make 4 walls to have the full makif of the sukkah from all sides. But the halach is you only need 3 walls. So if the person had a sukkah that had 3 walls and the 3rd wall fell down, so then because now he's putting up, right, when you have a sukkah that only has 2 walls, it's b'chalal not called an oil. It's not so when you put up that 3rd wall, you're creating an oil. So that's going to be a problem. But if you're putting up the 4th wall, so then it's already an oil. It's already, because once it has 3 walls, it's already a kosher sukkah. You're adding a 4th wall. That's called adding to an existing oil. The 4th wall is taka not making an oil. Here you're only adding to an existing oil. And that's exactly like the opinion of the Rabbanan that say that you can put up the shutters on the window when you're adding to an existing oil. That's when it would be allowed. Dei kenami, the ktani nofal doif no. In the Braise, where it says that it's not allowed, what does it say? Doif no, its wall. What does its wall mean? So Rashi explains the wall that it needs, the wall that makes it a sukkah. That wall, doif no, the wall that makes it a sukkah fell. In other words, there were 3 walls before, and now the 3rd wall fell, and it's only 2 walls, and you're putting back up a wall that is going to make it into an oil. That's not allowed. Shmami no, we see that that's the pshat in the Braise. Okay. Gemara goes weiter. Elo Adam kashya. Now the question, the stira that we had, Adam is still going to be a question. Why is it still a question? Why can't we give the same answer for Adam? So Rashi explains, because it says in the Braise that when you're putting up the wall, the human partition, what does it say in the Braise? Why are you putting up the wall of the Adam? In order that you should be able to eat, drink, and sleep in the sukkah. Meaning, before you put up that wall of the Adam, you can't eat and drink in the sukkah. Why? Because you didn't even have 3 walls. Now you only had 2 walls. So we can't give the answer that we just gave, that in the Braise where it says that you're allowed to put up the mechitza of the Adam is because it already had 3 walls. It beferish says in the Braise, before you put up the wall, you couldn't eat and drink in the sukkah. So what's going to be our answer when you get to using a human partition? So here the Gemara says another answer. Adam nami loy kashe. This is not a question. Kan ledas, kan shaloi midas. There's a difference if you're using a person and that person is aware that you're using him as a mechitza, then it's not allowed. Kan shaloi midas. Only if you're using a person that he's unaware that he's being used as a mechitza, he's standing in that position and he doesn't know that he's being there for that purpose, then it's allowed to use the person. So Rashi explains, when you use a person that knows he's being used for a mechitza, so then again, if you're using a person shaloi ladas, he doesn't know that he's being used for a mechitza, so the reason why it's allowed is because ein derech binyan bekach. Okay, he's standing there. He doesn't even know he's standing there to be part of the wall. Right? If a person knows that I have to stand here in this position and I'm serving here as this oil, sometimes you do use a human partition for at least temporarily, oil arai, for that purpose. But if the person, if you get him to stand in that position and he doesn't even know why he's standing there, b'chlal, so Rashi says, ein derech binyan bekach. So therefore, it's not going to be considered to be a wall. That's the answer of the question over here. B'negeh to this inyan. Frek to Gemara now, the whole discussion was brought up. B'negeh to Nechemya, the Rab Nechemya Breder Rav Chaniloi. What happened? He went out of the Tchum and they created a human partition for him to be able to enter back into the Tchum. So fragt the Gemara, now that you came to this conclusion about using a human partition, that it depends if the people that are being used for this are aware of it or not. Wasn't it Ladas? Weren't the people that were there as a human partition aware of this, so they can't be used for this? So the Gemara, no, Shalai Midas Hava. It was Shalai Midas, the people that were going to be used for this, to have him be able to go back into the Tchum, they weren't aware of this. Fragt the Gemara, Rav Chisda Mia Ladas Hava. Rav Chisda was told this Eitzah. So he's aware that we're doing it for this purpose. So he knew. So how could it be part of this partition? So the Gemara, Rav Chisda Shaloi Men Aminyan Hava. Rav Chisda himself arranged for this to happen, that the people that will come out and will walk in that area and they'll be standing in that position, but he himself wasn't part of this mechitza. If even only one person that's part of this human mechitza is aware, even if you have 10, 20, 50 people, whatever number of people it is, none of them know that they're being used, but there's one person that's in a position that he creates a gap of more than 3 tfachim, and it's not loved, and he knows, so then it's not going to be a good mechitza anymore. Alright, so for Rav Chisda, Shalom and Aminyan Hava. So here you see B'Payal Mamish, regarding using this eitzah of a human partition. So first of all, in the Ramah it says that this whole thing is b'di'evet. It's an eitzah, b'di'evet. If you went out of the tchum, or talking about the sukkah, the wall fell on Shabbos and Yom Tov, and the person doesn't have where to eat and drink, so b'di'evet you can use such an eitzah. So that's first of all, the whole thing is only b'di'evet. Second of all, this whole b'di'evet is only if the person that's being used doesn't know. If the person is aware, then it's not good. Now we're going to see here in the Hemshech of the Gemara brings stories about this. That in most cases, the person is going to be aware, especially if you're doing it more than once. You're asking a person to stand right over there. Go a little bit further, go right over there. The person's going to know what he's going to chapsach, what's going on over here, so you can't do it. Gemara brings a story. Hana b'nei ganona. There were people that were b'nei ganona. We had this before. These were people that would prepare the chuppis for the chassan and the kala. The all lumaya b'mechitza shel b'nei adam. They brought water from out of the tchum, or they brought water into Rosh Hashanah, maybe from Rosh Hashanah into Rosh Hashanah. How did they do it? B'mechitza shel b'nei adam. They used a human wall to create a place that you'll be able to bring it in. Nagdinu Shmuel. Shmuel gave them malchus for this. Because Omar, he said, if they allowed this to be done, when the people that are being used for this wall are unaware of this, could this be done the way they did it? They did it with the people being aware that they're being used as a human partition to bring in the water. So that's not allowed. Hanuziki, there were barrels of water or wine, whatever it is. Rashi says, noidos, barrels of the shadyon beristike de mechuzah, that were thrown on the floor in the marketplace of Mechuzah, which apparently belonged to Rava, as we'll see here. So Bahadid also Rava mipirke. When Rava came back from his shir, from learning, they brought it in for him l'shabbata, for Shabbos, for the Suda. Again, let me read it again. They brought it in for him. How? With all the people that were walking with Rava. So there was a human partition. So they brought these barrels in between the people that were walking, so they were able to bring it in between, inside the spechitza of people. L'shabbata achriti, it came the next Shabbos, boya elinu, they wanted to bring it in the same way. V'asaluhu, and Rava said it's not allowed. Why? The havale kiladas, because once you do it a second time, even if they're walking in that direction anyways, but it's as if they're aware of this, they know that you're bringing it in for this purpose, and it's awesome. Levi, Ilulei Tivne, by Levi they brought in teven, they brought in straw. Zeiri aspasta, Zeiri brought in aspasta. Rav Shimi Barchia Maya, he brought in water, all using a human mechitza, and again only in a way that they weren't aware that they're being used for this purpose. As long as it's being done the first time and it's in a way that they're not aware, it's possible to do this b'di'evet. But if it's being done for the second time, we can't be saimach on this anymore.
So again, why is Medas nicht good?
Because it's one, huh?
So like the binyan, right?
Yeah.
If
If it's ladas, it's like it's derech binyan. Yeah.
Das is der binyan.
Yeah, because for mechitza arai, sometimes you do use a person to create a partition. If it's shalei ladas, so then it's ein derech binyan bekach. You're just telling the person to stand there, and the binyan happens memela. He doesn't even know what he's doing b'chlal.
it's good not everyone's learning Eiruvin. No shalai b'das, otherwise they would know.
Yeah. Okay.
What's the chiddush as pasta, maya, tivna?
Yeah. Okay. I don't know why specifically these things, but he's just showing you that they used it. Yeah. Sagt the Mishnah, Misha Yatze B'Rishus, a person that left his Tchum Shabbos with permission. And Rashi gives you two examples. For someone that was going to say Eidus for the new month, you're allowed to go even on Shabbos. Or a person that was going out for Pekuach Nefashis. V'Amru Lai, and on his way, he's outside of the Tchum, but Kvar Nasa Maisa. They told him wherever you were going for was accomplished already. So, for example, the Eidus was said already for the new month, or whatever you were going out for Pekuach Nefashis was accomplished already. So now he's outside of the Tchum, and he went out with permission. Wherever he is, from that place, he has 2,000 amas to each side to go. He went out B'Rishus, so Chacham Mesaken that he doesn't have to stay in his Daled Amas. If he was still inside the Tchum, it's as if he didn't go out. The Gemara is going to explain what this means. There's no chiddush to this. If he's in his Tchum. Anybody that goes out to save somebody, could go back to their place. So this as well, the Gemara will explain what's the chiddush in this case. Zok the Gemara. What's the meaning of the second statement of the Mishnah here? If you were inside the Tchum, as if you didn't go out. Isn't that Pashut? Amar Rabbe, so Rabbe says, this is the Pshat over here. If you were within the Tchum of your house, so even though you went out of your house, but you're still in the city, you're still within 2,000 amas of your house, it's as if you didn't leave your house and you can walk in your original Tchum where you are. Fragt the Gemara, Pshita, that's also obvious. If a person is still in his Tchum, he can still walk around wherever he wants in his Tchum. Why not? We know that. Fragt the Gemara, I would think, Hoyil ve'okar okar. There would be a svara to say, when you leave your house with the intention to stay within the Tchum, then I say you can walk around wherever you want in the Tchum. But when you left your house, you were planning on leaving the Tchum because you was going to say Eidus and Kiddush HaChaydish or to save someone. So the moment you left your house with that intention, maybe I would say it's as if you already left the Tchum even before you did. Kamash Malan, therefore the Mishnah says no. If you're still in the Tchum, even if you had kavanah to go out of the Tchum, it doesn't matter. You're still considered to be in your Tchum. That's Rav's Pshat, Rabbe's Pshat. Rav Shimi bar Chiyama, Hachikama, the Pshat over here is different. Here we actually are talking about a person that left this Tchum. Im hayu tchumin shenasnu leichachamim muvlan b'teich tchum shalai. Let's say a person left his Tchum, but how far out did he leave his Tchum? He left, let's say, only 1,000 amas out of his Tchum. So now, at that point, he found out that he doesn't have to go any further. He's not needed anymore. So now Chachamim said, where you are, you have 2,000 amas to walk around wherever you are. So now your new Tchum that Chachamim gave you where you are overlaps on your original Tchum where you were in the beginning of Shabbos. That's what we're talking about over here. It's as if you didn't go out of your Tchum because it overlaps your original Tchum. You can enter back into your original Tchum and you can go wherever you want. That's the Chiddush over here.
That's regular.
He went out of his Tchum. He went out of his Tchum, okay, so but when it says in the Mishnah that he's meaning his new Tchum is now overlapping into his old Tchum that he was in, and therefore you can walk back in.
The Tchum is 2,000 amas.
Right.
So if he went what?
He went out another 1,000 amas, let's say. Right. But now in that new place he has another 2,000 amas to go around. This that overlaps his original Tchum.
So not more or something else.
If
it's more than 1,000, I said.
Well, I'm giving a mashal of 1,000, but if it's overlapping, it could be overlapping even 1 amma. So what's the argument here between Rabbe and Rav Shimi bar Chiyah and these two pshatim in the Mishnah? Mar Savar, Rav Shimi bar Chiyah holds Havlos Tchumen Milsihi. The fact that your new Tchum is getting swallowed in, it overlaps in the old Tchum, that's good. You're able to go in. Mar Savar, Rabbi says, Lav Milsi. No, we can't rely on that. You have a new Tchum now, you don't go back to your old Tchum, even though it overlaps, you're only allowed to go the 2,000 amas of your new Tchum. The fact that it overlaps doesn't help me. Okay, the Gemara is going to continue on this subject in the Hemshech of the next Talmud. We'll see tomorrow.